Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about what to expect during labor and delivery and how to get yourself prepared for the whole thing. I'm feeding baby boy, so if you can hear him moving and grunting and sucking, he moves a lot when he eats. He wants to like look around and all that, so I'm sorry about that, but that's what it is. We're going to talk about how to mentally prepare, how to physically prepare, what you're going to go through, a little bit of TMI stuff as well. I'm trying to like get as much info to y'all as I can, especially if you're a first-time mom. This can be something that a lot of moms are scared about when you get closer to that date where you know you're probably going to have your baby soon, and then it hits you like, oh my gosh, how is this going to happen? What is going to happen? How am I going to feel? What am I gonna do? All of those things, I totally understand. Even if you're a second and third time mom, sometimes you forget what happened and then you're going, oh no, I gotta go through that again. We're gonna talk all about those things. I hope that I answer as many questions as possible that you guys may have. If I didn't answer something during this video, let me know down in the comments below and I will try to answer your question as best I can. Before we get started though, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. I would love to have you here in our little Soul Tribe Mama family. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, first thing I want to talk about is I do not do birth plans. So I have never done a birth plan, and mainly because I asked my doctor with my first pregnancy, do I need to have a birth plan? I don't understand what this is. And she pretty much told me, you can make a birth plan, but I will tell you right now that if something is going on and I need to save the baby's life or save your life, I'm not gonna ask you for permission, pretty much. And I feel like that is just common sense. And so for me, a birth plan was pointless. There's so many different questions. You can get apps and they'll give you all these questionnaires for a birth plan and what you want, and there's just so many things that it just overwhelmed me for one, and I just felt like it wasn't worth it. Now that doesn't mean that a birth plan is not a great thing to have. I like to have, I guess, a birth plan for myself. So my birth plan is not necessarily something that I would have like written up, given to the doctor and the nurses, and when I get to the hospital and say, look, this is what I want, this is how I want to do it, that kind of thing. What I like to do is either have it written down for myself or just in my mind of what I like and what I want and how I want to prepare. For one being, do you want music? Do you want a playlist? Are you that kind of person that wants music playing while you're delivering or even before when you're laboring? Do you want to wear comfy clothing? Or is there a certain thing that you want to wear? You do not want to wear the hospital gowns that they give you. That is an option. I don't wear the hospital gowns. I always wear my own clothing, and I will delve more into that a little bit later on in the video. But another thing would be obviously like, do you want an epidural or not? Now that is something they're going to ask you immediately when you get there. Do you want an epidural? Do you not want an epidural? I always ask for the epidural. That's just always been me. I knew from the get-go when I got pregnant the first time, there's no way I'm doing a labor and delivery without an epidural. So I always knew that was my plan. That is the one thing that I did tell my doctor the first time I got pregnant. I said, please write down on every piece of paperwork she wants an epidural. You can also think to yourself like maybe the position that you would like to have your baby in. The normal position, I don't even know if you call that a normal position, but normally you just lay on your back, you pull your knees up and push that way. That's how they're going to ask you to do it in the hospital. But you can totally push in other positions if you want to. If you feel more comfortable on all fours, if you feel more comfortable squatting, those are things that you can tell the nurses when you get there, because to me, that's kind of stuff that kind of happens as you're going through labor. It's not something that you say before you're even in the hospital, oh, I'm definitely going to want to squat. I do not want to do it any other way. And then you get in there and you're just not comfortable that way. So it just depends. I have never done it any other way other than laying on my back, pulling my knees up to my chest, but that is because that is what felt most comfortable for me and safest for me. So it just depends, and that's why I don't like the birth plans that say, oh, this is how I want it, blah, 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 because you can get there and that birth plan can go out the window and everything could totally be off, and mentally that could make you get stressed out, and I don't like that. Do not want to be stressed when you're going through labor and delivery. You want to enjoy it as much as possible because obviously pain is not enjoyable, but you don't want to be in a situation where you had your heart set on so many different things on this birth plan and you get in that hospital and literally every single one did not happen and was the total opposite. And then your mood is down, you feel horrible, you start overthinking it, and you're not present and in the moment of your birth and your baby. This is my opinion. I need to preface this whole video. I should have said this in the beginning. All of this stuff that I'm telling y'all is my opinion and also my advice because I've had 4 babies in a hospital. Now, this is going to be different for somebody. If you want to have your baby at home or in a birthing center, it might be different. I have never done that, so I cannot talk about that kind of stuff. I've always had my babies in a hospital and a certain way. Even though with all 4 babies I have had them differently, I have not had a C-section. So I cannot talk about C-sections. I cannot talk about birthing centers and at-home births because I have not gone through them, and I'm not going to tell y'all about it if I don't know anything about it. That being said, all of this stuff is things that have happened to me, what I feel like worked for me and helped me get through labor and delivery and prepare for it. Please do not think that everything that I'm saying is like, this is how it has to be, you shouldn't do it any other way. Going back to the birth plan, again, if you want to write a birth plan, go right ahead, mama. It's all up to you. All I'm saying is I feel like there's too much pressure on this birth plan compared to all these other areas that you could be, you know, thinking about and working on leading up to labor and delivery that are probably more important than a piece of paper that just states things that you want. That being said, as you're going through your pregnancy, definitely write down, you know, little notes here and there, maybe in a journal or on your phone, of things that maybe you've heard other people do during their labor and delivery, or you've watched them on YouTube and you've thought, you know what, I would really love to try that, or I would love to do that. Definitely write it down because you don't want to forget those things. And then once you get into the hospital, maybe that happens for you. Maybe that's something that you're able to do, and that's awesome. The other thing that I had for myself was whether or not I wanted people in the room with me. So that is another thing that you're going to want to think about. Do you want a lot of people in there? Do you want just your husband? Do you want just family? Do you want nobody in there? Do you care if they have extra nurses in your room just to watch and to learn from your birthing experience? All of those things, I would definitely at least have them written down somewhere so that you have a plan in your mind of things that you would like, but this is not a definite, you know, I have to have this or else kind of thing. So I'm going to go over that list real quick because I feel like I kind of jumped here and there. So number 1 for me was whether or not I wanted music, and if I did, I wanted to make my own playlist. Number 2 is clothing. Do you want to wear your own clothes, or do you want to wear just the gown that they give you? And then, like I said, a little bit later, I'll talk about more in depth of clothing and what I wore and what I felt most comfortable in. Number 3 is going to be the position that you are pushing your baby out if you are pushing and not having a C-section. Number 4 is going to be an epidural or no epidural. And number 5 is whether or not you want people in your room and how many people, family members, nurses, all of that kind of stuff. All right, now I'm going to move on to the fear of birth. And I'm pretty sure every mama has this. You're going through your pregnancy, you're so overwhelmed with love and all of the different things that are happening to you during pregnancy and growing and the baby moving, and then you hit that like 7-8 month mark and you're like, oh no, this is gonna end soon and I have to push a baby out of my hoo-ha. Unless you were already scheduled for a C-section, then you're probably, you know, trying to learn all about C-sections. But if you haven't been scheduled for that and you don't know, you know, whether or not it'll be a C-section or a vaginal birth, I'm sure your mind is like, what the heck am I gonna do? And I feel like every woman is like this, but especially when you're pregnant, your mind races. You start with, what am I gonna do? Oh my gosh, it's coming up. And then you start thinking about all the horrible things that could possibly happen and how much pain you're gonna be in, and you freak yourself out to no end. I will say with my first pregnancy, I kind of have this mentality anyways. I'm always a kind of go with the flow kind of girl. So for me, I didn't have as much fear as I thought I was gonna have. And I had so many friends that had not had kids yet texting me a month before I had my baby. Oh my God, are you terrified of having him? Like, are you scared of what's gonna happen? You know, what are you feeling? And every time they would say that, I was like, not really. I just know he has to come out. I can't go backwards now. Like there's no turning back. Like there is no other option other than to get him out. He can't stay in there forever and I can't go backwards. So I have to be prepared for that. I can't say, nope, I don't want to do this anymore. Sorry, I changed my mind. That's not possible. You have to mentally prepare. And anytime I started thinking about and really was like, well, maybe if I think about it really hard, I might freak out, I would just tell myself, you know what? He has to come out. I'm going to a hospital. I know that my OB has delivered babies millions of times. All the nurses I'm going to be around have done the same thing. I am in the best hands possible. Or if anything goes wrong, I know that I am in safe hands. I know that the people around me are going to help me not be fearful in those moments. They're going to push me to do whatever I need to do to get my baby out. And then, you know, if you have your spouse or your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is next to you that is helping you out, having those people around you that give you that extra courage and make you feel like you are super mama, superwoman over here is really, really good. You definitely want to have those people in the room with you for sure. So family members, best friends, husband, obviously, if your husband is down with being in the room. I know that some guys are freaked out about that and maybe not the best person to have next to you if they're just as scared as you are. Definitely having a support system is great, but knowing that your doctor and those nurses have delivered millions of babies, they know what they're doing and they know how to help you. Some other things that you can do to mentally prepare yourself to not be stressed out, to not be super scared, is meditating. So I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God. I am a Christian and I pray a lot. And so that definitely helped me prepare and get ready for labor and delivery. And even when I was in the room and things were going on, I would close my eyes and just pray to God. So if that is something that you do, I definitely recommend that you're praying, but also meditating in a way that you learn how to really listen to your body, sit in silence, listen to your body, feel the baby, feel your body, and just know how to keep your mind in that space. Because when you start to get into that other space of fear and not knowing what could possibly happen, especially if you're going through the delivery and things are going wrong or you're feeling a lot of pain and you just aren't prepared for that. Obviously, you've never gone through it before. Your mind can take you to a whole other realm that is not good. So our minds are super powerful, especially when it comes to the pain and all of that. You can definitely help yourself get through that, push through that pain, push through those fears of anything going wrong by being able to get into your mind, be calm, learn how to calm your mind down, all those things. And really the only way to learn how to do that is to meditate. And I feel like sometimes when people say meditate, it's like, what? No, that's not what you're doing. Being able to just sit somewhere, even if it's like 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there, especially if you're at the end of your pregnancy and you're getting to that point where your mind is starting to race and you're starting to really feel those fears coming in just randomly throughout the day. When those fears hit, close your eyes, start breathing. Especially, this would be a great time to learn how to do your breathing for labor and delivery. So learning how to breathe through your nose and out your mouth, being able to concentrate on your breathing, and then getting into your mind and kind of going to that happy place. So learning how to take yourself out of that situation of fear and put yourself into a situation where you feel calm, you feel confident, and you feel happy. And it's literally mind over matter. Every time. It's always going to be mind over matter. And if you can do that before you have the baby, then when you're in that labor and delivery, you're going to be a pro at it. You're going to be able to get through it, to just push yourself to keep going. I don't know if you have watched my labor and delivery vlog. I will have it linked here. On my 4th time around, my epidural failed and I have never had that happen before. And this baby was a little bit bigger than all my other ones. He went a lot longer. I actually went past my due date for this baby, and all my other babies were born 2 weeks early. So he was already a little bit bigger. It was past my due date. The labor and delivery that I had gone through before, I knew how to go through it. It was great. It was fine. It was actually a great time for me. This time around, it did not happen that way. And I had to be prepared for that, and I really wasn't, because you can't fully be prepared for anything to possibly happen because you just don't know how that's gonna feel. And so the pain that I felt and the things that were happening to me during that time started to scare me. Once I realized that the epidural had failed and I couldn't get another one, I started to freak out a little bit. My mind was like, oh my gosh, am I seriously about to push this baby out with no epidural, with no medication? I cannot believe this. Like, I have never prepared myself for this because I always thought, you know, I'm gonna get the epidural, it's no big deal. And it was hard, but I was able to, in between pushes and moaning and groaning and screaming, every time I would think it hurts and I have to keep going, I would immediately try to be like, okay, no. It's okay, I can do this. Like, I'm already here. I'm already halfway through this labor. I have to keep going. I have to keep going, and I can do this. Women have been giving birth for years with no medication. I can do this. My body was made for this. I can do this. And keeping that reel going through my mind. Now, that doesn't mean, if you watch my video, you'll see that every time that I had to push, that it hurt, and that you could tell in the video that it hurt me. Of course, but I just kept trying to tell myself, okay, it's okay, it's okay. But at the same time, I do want to say it is okay to scream, to moan, to groan, whatever, move around, whatever you need to do. That's your body's way of trying to get through that pain and keep going. So if you're a screamer, if you moan, if you groan through those pains, it's okay. That's actually helping your body and helping your mind be able to keep going. Just want to put that out there. Just because you do that doesn't mean that you're weak or, you know, that you're too scared. That's not the case at all. You have to go through that sometimes. Everybody's different. Some people scream really loud when they go through labor and delivery. Some people barely make a sound and they're very internal. It just depends on the person. Another way that you can help with fear of birth and labor and delivery is affirmations. Telling yourself affirmations every day, writing them on your mirror in the bathroom. So when you wake up in the morning, it's something that you read every morning to yourself. It could be, you know, I am strong, I can get through this, I was made for this, my body knows what to do. There's all kinds of things. I would just start writing a ton of them down, maybe sticky notes all over the place, write them in your phone and have it be something that you read over to yourself every night before you go to bed, every morning when you wake up. Like I said, again, mind over matter. Those things, especially repeated in your mind and to yourself, really, really do take effect. Like, they can totally affect your mind and they can totally affect your mood as well. I definitely recommend affirmations and meditation to help with the fear of labor and delivery. Now I want to move on to the physical aspect of preparing yourself. I want to be honest with y'all and say I did not work out during my pregnancy. I didn't do any kind of yoga or anything even, you know, right before I had him. But I will say that with my first and second pregnancy, I did do Pilates, and I do feel like it really helped me during the labor and delivery process. So I wish I would have done it with my last two, but I don't know if I could say that I was just lazy or if I was just busy with other kids. I don't know, but I'm not really a big workout person anyways, so I didn't do a whole lot of working out. I do know that Pilates helped me learn how to push correctly when I was giving birth. A lot of people just push like they're having to go to the bathroom and they're constipated, and that's really the wrong way to push because you could probably rip a lot easier that way. You're putting too much pressure down there. The best way to learn how to push is if you do Pilates or yoga, they're going to teach you how to, you know, if you do a sit-up, how do you curl up? Or if you're curling your body up by, if you're touching your toes and you go to curl your body back up straight, they always tell you to, like, you know, if you're bent, you like curl up this way. You don't just go like this. Same thing if you're laying down and you're doing a crunch, it's curling your body like this instead of going up and down. And you're learning how to engage those core muscles from the top to the bottom. And that really helped me learn how to push and how to breathe correctly during my labor and delivery. And even though I didn't work out my last two pregnancies, I did use that same technique when I was pushing during all of my labor and deliveries with my 4 babies. What I did is when they tell you to push, they count to 10, and it really sucks because you're like, I can't hold my breath that long. I feel like they're counting super slow. but they do count to 10 and make you push that whole time. And then you get a second to catch your breath and you do it again. You do it 3 times in a row and then they make you stop. And then they do it 3 times in a row and they make you stop. So whenever you're ready to push, you want to think about, especially if you're doing it like I do, where you're laying on your back with your knees pulled up close to you, you're gonna be having people next to you help you if you need it to push your legs closer to your body. But usually you have your arms around your knees and you're pulling your knees closer to you at the same time as you're pushing. So you pull your knees close to you and then you start engaging the core muscle up top and you start curling and really thinking about engaging those muscles and contracting one by one. So contracting the top one, contracting the middle, contracting the bottom, and then pushing as you go. That is something that I would definitely recommend. If you don't know how to do it and you've never done it before, don't try to do it the minute you go to push. I would try to learn how to do that before you have your baby. And even though you have a baby in your belly and your belly's big and you can't really curl or do any kind of crunches or anything like that, what I would do is when I would be driving in my car, I would be thinking about breathing and I would try to contract my muscles and not totally curl, but just try to see if I could engage my muscles enough. And you can feel it. I'm telling y'all, even though your baby's there and your belly's big and your abs are all stretched out, you can still feel your muscles engaging, especially at the top and in the middle, and learning how to breathe and curl your body just enough and push that pressure there. Because what that's gonna do is gonna push baby from up here down. That is your goal. Your goal is to push baby from here down and out. In your mind, if you think about it, it's pretty genius. Like when the Pilates teacher told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense. Like, why would I just sit there and go, ugh? Instead, I want to be able to really think about it, engage my core, and slowly roll my body and pushing the baby out that way. Another reason why you do not want to be fearful going into labor and delivery or having any kind of stress over that is that it can actually affect your baby during labor and delivery and cause problems during that. The baby can go into distress. There can be a lot of things that happen with their oxygen levels and all of that, and it actually comes from you. The baby is pretty much the energy that you have, the baby is feeling that energy. So if you are fearful, then the baby's heart rate could drop, their oxygen level can drop. There's a lot of things that can happen. And so I always knew, you know, I don't want to put my baby into any kind of stressful situation, and I don't want to be in a stressful situation either. So learning how to do, you know, breathing, learning how to push correctly, making sure that you're saying your affirmations, meditating, and trying to keep your mind in that happy space, that safe space, is always going to be your best friend. It's going to be everything that you can do, not only for yourself to help you get through labor and delivery, but it's actually going to help your baby have a smooth, you know, transition from womb to world and be safe and happy and healthy and all of those things. All right, now I want to talk about what to expect during labor and delivery in a hospital and what's going to happen before you go into labor and delivery or before you even leave your house for the hospital. What's going to happen to your body as it starts getting into actual labor. All of those things, there's going to be a little bit of TMI in there, so if you don't like that kind of stuff, then you might want to skip this part, but if you're cool with it, then just keep watching. So first thing I want to talk about is always eat before you go to the hospital. I did not do this twice. I forgot to do this and I was so upset with myself. The first time I didn't do it because I had no clue. I didn't know anything. I thought that, you know, we were heading to the hospital and I thought, well, they're going to check me and they're probably going to send me home. So I didn't think that I was actually ready to have my baby. And once they admitted me into the hospital, I asked my husband to get me food and the nurse said, I'm sorry, you can't eat until you have your baby. And I didn't have my baby until like 28 hours later. I was really hungry. I always recommend, if you know you are about to leave to go to the hospital, even if it's just because you think you might be having your baby or you're not quite sure and you need them to check you out, stop on the way and grab you something to eat or eat something at home before you go. Because once you get to that hospital and if they say we're going to admit you, they will not let you eat anything until you have that baby, which really sucks. But the only reason they do that is just in case they have to do an emergency surgery or an emergency C-section. They don't want to have food in your stomach with all the IVs and the medications that they have to give you to go through that process. Definitely eat something on the way or before you leave the house. I promise this one thing, if you remember to do this one thing, you will thank me later because you will realize how hungry you will be and it sucks so bad to be sitting there eating ice chips and dreaming that it's a burger or a pizza or something. It's horrible. So definitely make sure your stomach is full and happy before you go to the hospital. Another thing is, I don't know if everybody knows this, but you can actually ingest your placenta after you have a baby. And it does sound really gross. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. It's much more popular now. If you do research on it and you look it up, you'll be able to see all these other companies that offer this. It is not something that the hospital offers. So you have to go through, a separate company to do this. And they will set you up with like a little cooler and everything to take to the hospital, and instructions for the nurses to, put the placenta into this cooler, and then you send it away, or they come and pick it up at the hospital. And you can either have it raw, they can hydrate it, they can put it in pill form. There's a whole lot of different things. They can put it into ointment and everything. But there is really good research on the benefits of actually ingesting your placenta. I wanted to do this so badly. The only thing is, you cannot do this if you, bless you, boo-boo. If you are positive for, what is it, strep B or strep, I can't remember the name, but they always test you when you're pregnant for this one thing. I can't remember if it's strep B or, y'all, I do not know, but there's this one test that they give you. The doctor will talk to you about this. There's one test that they give you while you're pregnant, and then they call you and let you know if you're negative or positive. And the only reason they need to know that is if you are positive, they have to give you antibiotics in your IV before you start pushing your baby out. And that way it just makes sure that the baby doesn't actually get it as they're coming out of you. If you are positive, you cannot do this placenta encapsulation or anything like that. And I hated that because I was actually positive with my first 3 pregnancies. And I was so upset because I really wanted to do it. And I thought for sure I would be positive again because I've always been positive. And I actually was negative with baby boy Knox. But I wasn't thinking about it because I always thought I was going to be positive. And by the time I found out I was negative, it was a little bit too late to be able to order that whole placenta encapsulation kits and get it all set up and ready to go. So I never got to try this, y'all, and I'm really upset because I really wanted to try it. One of the biggest benefits is the healing process. It goes faster for you, and it really helps to eliminate postpartum depression so that you either don't get it or that you're able to heal a lot quicker from your labor and delivery and your birthing. There's just so many great things about it. I really wish I could do it. So if you can do it, if you are negative, if you test negative for that, I can't remember what it's called, but when you get the test, you'll know what I mean. But if you test negative, I would totally recommend that you do it. I feel like the pill form is the easiest way to do it just because you don't have to see it. It doesn't look gross. It literally looks like a little pill that you just pop in, you take 1 or 2 a day, and that's it. So I think that it is totally awesome. I would totally recommend that for somebody, especially if it's going to help with postpartum, because we don't know enough about postpartum. They have not done enough research about it to really understand it fully, or even to help us figure out how to prevent it. If it can help with postpartum, then it's a game changer for me. Again, wish I had it. Okay, next thing is the number 1 sign that you should be looking out for that is going to tell you that your body is getting ready to go into labor, active labor, and ready to have this baby is your mucus plug. And that word just alone sounds gross, but it's true. That's what they call it. And it is like a little plug that is up in there in your cervix, and once it starts to come out, then that's when everything gets softened and starts opening and all of those fun things. So the mucus plug can either come out fully, so it could be like one big clump, or it can come out in pieces. And it's going to look and feel like, kind of like discharge, but a little bit gooier and goopier. I feel like those words just sound gross too, but I don't know how else to explain it. It literally looks like mucus. It sometimes can be clear, it could be white, it could be yellow, but it is gonna be very sticky, like tacky almost. Mine always came out in pieces. I never had like a full big chunk come out. I always had it coming out in pieces, and sometimes you would notice when you go to the bathroom, sometimes you notice when you're in the shower. And so after that full plug comes out, you either have a week or a week and a half left before baby is probably going to come. That is probably the easiest way to predict when you think you might have your baby, is when the mucus plug comes out, or at least when it's starting to come out. Then you know, okay, Baby's probably gonna be here in the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. Definitely be ready for that. I remember my first time around, when that thing started coming out, I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is this? Oh my gosh, it's so gross. Like, is something wrong with me? What's going on? And then I realized as it kept happening every day, then I realized, oh, this is the mucus plug. And within like days of it coming out, I ended up going into labor. So that is the best way to figure out that you're about to have your baby probably pretty soon. Another thing I want to talk about is your water breaking. Your water will not always break, and it is never like the movies. Every once in a while I've heard people say that it's kind of like a gush, but most of the time it's usually a trickle. You probably feel like you're uncontrollably peeing yourself and you just cannot stop, and it won't stop, and you don't know what's wrong with you. That is what happened with my first. Again, you know, it's my first. I have no clue what's going on. My mucus plug had been coming out in pieces. Next thing I know, I'm actually doing hair because I'm a hairstylist. So I was doing hair for my friend and I was having her do my hair, knowing that I was probably gonna have a baby soon, not thinking it was that day. And I started feeling like I was peeing myself. So I like quietly was like, hey, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I went to the bathroom, sat down on the toilet, and I was trickling out. And then I went to stand up and I just wouldn't stop. And I put a pad on and the pad got full within like 5 seconds. And it just kept going and going and going and going. And I finally told my friend, I'm like, I think my water broke. Like, I don't know what's going on. Definitely water broke. That's how mine went. When your water breaks, that does not mean that you're immediately gonna go into this like full-on labor, that you're gonna be feeling pain and contractions. I actually felt so good. I was leaking everywhere. I had a towel in my car, sitting in there driving myself to the hospital because I was on the other side of town, meeting my husband there. I was feeling great. I didn't have any pain. There was nothing going on at all. And when I got to the hospital, they checked me and everything. They said, yes, your water did break. They ended up inducing me. It took quite a long time before my baby came. So I want to talk about that as well. So when your water breaks, it's probably going to be a trickle more than a gush. It's just not going to be like the movies half the time. But when it does break, they want you to go to the hospital pretty quickly. They don't want you to sit around and wait, because you can actually end up having an infection and even maybe giving that infection to the baby if you wait too long while your water is coming out, or even after your water has fully come out. You may end up getting an infection, and obviously that's not what you want. So they want you to go to the hospital pretty quickly after your water has broken to check you, check baby, make sure everything is going okay. Next thing I want to say is usually when your water breaks, you're not going to go into full like contractions and all of that. What's going to end up happening is they're probably going to give you Pitocin, and Pitocin just kind of speeds up the process of giving birth. So Pitocin is supposed to speed up the laboring process, and when they told me that, it kind of freaked me out because I thought, oh, does that mean it's going to hurt more? And the nurse said that it probably would hurt a little bit more, but I didn't feel anything. So I don't know what happened, but I didn't have I did have contractions, but I actually wasn't feeling them. I don't know what was going on, y'all. That was just like a crazy freak thing, because even the nurses were like, how are you not needing pain medicine? Like, I don't know, maybe that whole mind over matter thing was working so good for me that I literally did not feel any of the contractions until right before they were about to give me the epidural. They're going to give you Pitocin, and I thought that meant, oh, it speeds up the process, meaning like I'm gonna have a baby in like an hour or two. No, I literally sat in a bed and I did not have my baby until 24 hours later, which was really, I was so bored in that bed, and I just kept waiting and thinking this is happening. I don't know if that every time your water breaks that you immediately get induced and then you sit there forever, but at least for me, when my water broke, it definitely took a lot longer than I was thinking it would to actually get into the active labor and then eventually get my epidural and actually start pushing. So just be prepared for that. If your water breaks, you're probably not gonna have a baby right away, and you might be in the hospital for a little while, and they probably are going to give you Pitocin to try to kick that up a notch and get you going. Now I want to talk about the opposite. If you start having contractions and your water has not broken at all, you haven't noticed that your water is broken at all, and you start having contractions, you know, you may not know that they're contractions yet. It might just feel like period cramps, just a little bit more intense. But you will start noticing that, okay, so they're happening a little bit more often. It's not just like random here and there. Definitely make sure that you start timing them. There's tons of apps that will do this for you so that you don't have to try to figure it out you know, oh, it's been this long, you know, the contraction lasted this long and it's been this many minutes in between contractions. Definitely get an app for that so that all you have to do is press a button the minute you start to feel pain and then press stop when it stops. That is the best way to do it, because your mind, you're trying to get ready for the hospital, you're trying to make sure everything's good. It's just too much to handle. Get an app to help you with that. Time your contractions. When your contractions get to 8 minutes apart, you should go to the hospital. I didn't do this. My first child, my water broke and I went to the hospital. My second child, I had contractions starting, my water never broke. For me, I only knew what to do if my water broke. My contractions were going, I was timing them, and I didn't know what time to go to the hospital. And I waited until I was like 5 minutes apart, which was horrible, because when I left our house, we were 5 minutes apart, a minute long. The hospital is about 20 minutes from my house. By the time we got to the hospital, I was at a minute apart and I was in so much pain. I thought for sure that I wasn't gonna make it for the epidural. I mean, I was screaming at the nurses. It's like, please help me. From 5 minutes to 1 minute, it went by so fast and it sped up so quickly, and you just don't know. Your body may take longer, it may fluctuate, or it could jump like that from a 5 to a 1 and pop a baby out. You don't want to wait too long, because if you know that you want an epidural, get yourself to the hospital. Make sure that you're there on time. I would rather get there and them tell me, you know, you're just not ready yet, go home, come back in an hour, than get there and not be able to get the epidural in time. Then you're already there, you have time, you know, for them to check you in, to do all of the things without you feeling like, oh my gosh, this baby's about to come out. And I got nothing. I got no pain medication, I got no epidural, none of that. Make sure if they are 8 minutes apart and lasting for at least a minute long, go get in your car and get to that hospital. I promise you, once you get there, you just feel more at ease, because you already know you're there. Now everything is up to the nurses to start getting you prepared and getting you ready to have that epidural and to, you know, get you comfortable so that you can have your baby. Now I want to say, if you do have contractions start and your water doesn't break, this is what happened with me with last 3 labor and deliveries. Is my water never broke when I got to the hospital, and they waited until I started to push for them to break it for me. Throughout all those contractions, never had my water break on its own. They do those first pushes with the nurse. They don't bring the doctor in. They have the nurse, you know, kind of push to see where the baby's at, try to push the baby down a little bit more. And then once they get to a certain point, then they bring the doctor in, and the doctor is going to deliver the baby. But in those first couple pushes is where they kind of feel out, you know, like, is the water bulging? Is it the baby's right there on it? We need to pop it already to like help the baby come down. Not until right before the doctor came in and ready to push did they pop my water. And that's fine. It's actually, I never felt it because I had the epidural, so it wasn't a big deal for me. Baby boy. That's right. Well, he's been with me this whole time, either feeding on me or laying next to me, but now he's up. Are you getting hungry again, baby? Oh yeah, I want to talk about dilation. So when you go to the doctor, your OB, you know, that probably 36 weeks, I think, is when they start checking for if you're dilated. Number one thing is you don't always have to be checked. If you don't want them to check you, you don't have to be checked for that, because sometimes people think that every time they check you, it could scrape it and make your body kind of go into labor quicker, and some people don't want to do that. They want it to just happen naturally. They don't want anything, you know, that could possibly make it happen any sooner than 40 weeks or when baby wants to come. So if you go to the doctor around 36 to 37 weeks and they check you and they tell you you are dilated 1 centimeter, 2, 3, even 4 centimeters, do not freak out. That does not mean that you're having a baby that night. Now, I do want to preface this by saying there is like that 1% chance that you could have your baby in like another day or 2. Some people go from a 4 to a 10 like that. It just depends. But majority of us, you could stay at a 4 centimeters for like 3 weeks before you ever go into full active labor. Now, you also want to think about if your mucus plug hasn't totally come out yet and you're already at a 3 centimeter, then you're probably not gonna have a baby yet. Your mucus plug has to come out completely for that to fully get going and be that quick. The first time they would check me at 36 to 37 weeks, I always was around 2 to 4 centimeters dilated. And you know, you get excited because you're like, oh my gosh, baby's coming, but it didn't always mean that. For me personally, my first 3 babies, I was checked at 37 weeks and I was 3 centimeters one time and 4 centimeters 2 times. And after that, within that week, I had my baby. So only about 6 to 7 days later of them checking me that at that time, did I have my baby. With him, I was checked the first time. I was dilated 2 centimeters, then it was 3 centimeters, and then it was 5 centimeters. And then finally he came at 41, not 41, at 40 weeks and a day. So that was a little bit different for me than my first 3. So like I said, with everybody, between me and any other mama, it can be different, but it can also be different within your own pregnancy. So if you have multiple children, your pregnancies are probably going to be different, and your labor and deliveries are going to be different, and postpartums, all of that stuff is going to be different, even within all of your children that you're having. So it's not just between me and you and other women, it could be between your own kids. So just be prepared for anything, really. Just be ready to know that it's not always going to be the same. It's not going to be something that you're used to every time. All of my labor and deliveries have been different in some kind of way. All right, next let's talk about epidurals and that they can fail sometimes. You always end up hearing the worst stories about labor and delivery and pregnancy in general. I feel like everybody sees a pregnant mama and is like, let me tell you the worst thing that has ever happened to me, and all these horror stories. And I hate that. I hate it so much. I do feel like we should be prepared. So we should know these stories. We should hear some of them sometimes, but not to the point where it's like, it's almost like somebody saying, oh, you're gonna have to go through this. You know, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't feel like it should be more, we should be hearing more about the amazing parts, the fun parts, the things that we should look forward to, not all the horror story stuff, okay? But I do want to say, I always heard people tell me horrible stories about how their epidural didn't work and blah, blah, blah. And those were always in the back of my mind, but I knew I wanted an epidural. And with my first 2 children, I had the epidural and it was amazing. It went perfectly fine. I felt absolutely nothing except for pressure. I always knew where the baby was on my body. So when you get the epidural, you don't go so numb that you don't feel anything at all. You are gonna be numb for sure, but you are gonna be able to feel pressure. You're gonna be able to know where the baby is, when the head is crowning, all of that. You just don't get the pain part. The pain, the excruciating pain you don't get. So that's what I loved. I was able to enjoy, I literally laughed in between pushes, and I would be talking to my husband and my mom and the doctor and the nurses and laughing and pushing in between, and it was so enjoyable, and I was able to be in the moment, and I could feel everything, meaning I didn't feel the pain, but I could feel where the baby was and get that whole experience without having the pain, and I loved that. Now, my third baby, it worked, but I could feel a little bit on my right side. Like I could tell my left side was like completely numb. I couldn't move my leg. But my right side, it was definitely numb, but I could still feel something. I could move my right leg. So I definitely felt a little bit more that time, but it was not pain. It was still more pressure. I could totally feel the pressure, but it was still enjoyable. I was able to get through it, and I loved it. Now, with this baby, my epidural failed. And totally failed. And when I heard people talk about this, I was always like, what? Like, what is that about? I don't get it. Now I get what they mean. And it was definitely hard. And it was a little scary at first, because once I realized, you know, that it wasn't gonna work and that I had no other choice but to just keep going and pushing, I had to, you know, be able to go back into my mind and say, it's okay, Jessica, you can do this. We're already this far. You got to get through it. I just want to say, if you've ever heard that story, it definitely can happen. Like I said, with me and this 4th baby, it totally happened to me. I've had 3 times where the epidural was totally fine, I had no problems. And then the 4th time, it just didn't work. And I don't know why. I don't know how that happens. I don't know what goes on. I don't know if it's where the baby's sitting. I have no idea why that happens. So I just want y'all to be prepared and just know that it could happen, but it probably isn't gonna happen. You're probably gonna have a great epidural experience and be able to tell your friends about how awesome it was, because for my first 3, it was definitely awesome. It was just this last buddy that gave me a little hard time, but that's okay. We're here, we're happy, we're healthy, and everything is good. Except for you're hungry now, aren't you? Okay. All right, y'all, next thing is gonna be ripping or being cut, which is called an episiotomy. With my first baby, I had an episiotomy. It's my first baby. Usually your first one, I mean, there's no other term to put it, but you're just tighter down there. So you're gonna be a lot tighter. And with my first baby boy, his head had crowned and it was just kind of stuck there. And I had been pushing a couple pushes and he wasn't really moving from that spot. And so my doctor said, you know what? So my doctor said, if I cut you and give you an episiotomy, he's probably gonna pop out right away. So I decided, you know what, let's go right ahead and do that. He's already been sitting there for a minute. I'm ready to have him out. And I told her, go ahead, do it. So she cut me and then she sewed me up once they put the baby on my chest. And since I had the epidural, I didn't feel any of it. I felt some tugging, but I didn't feel any of it. And I will say though, the healing part is the worst part. Going through labor and delivery, especially if you have the epidural, is really not that bad. The most pain that you're gonna feel is the healing from the stitches. I think most women will tell you that because it just sucks. Like every time you sit down, you can feel it, it hurts. And then you have, you know, certain ways of treating that. So if you guys are about to go through that and you don't know what it's like to go through the healing process and what you need, check out my postpartum must-haves video. I'll have that linked here as well. There is where I share all the stuff that you need to go through postpartum, to help you with the healing, everything down there, especially if you have any kind of stitches. Definitely check out that video. But there are a lot of times where you could tear. Now, the first time is the only time that I actually got cut. My last 3 babies have all been tears. I would rather them cut me because it's nice and even. And when you rip, you could rip down or up. Now, I want to just, if you don't know anything about an episiotomy, they always cut you from the vagina down to your butthole. Now they're not going to cut your butthole, but it's super tiny. It's only like this big. I didn't even know that you could rip up. I just always thought that I would rip down. Like I had been cut before. It was no big deal. No, I have ripped up twice, him and my daughter. So with both my sons, I was cut the first time down, and then the second time I did rip, but it ripped down. And then the last 2 times it ripped up, and it actually ripped up through one of my lips. Skin is so thin there that they can't really sew it back together. So it is all jacked up. It's all jacked up, y'all. But it's no big deal. But you can, there is a possibility of ripping up, and that one definitely hurts more healing wise than ripping down or having stitches down, because the stitches are just in a more sensitive area when it's going up instead of down. And like I said, that part is probably the worst part of healing and the pain that you're gonna get during postpartum. But it is a possibility. If you can, I would always ask for the episiotomy if they think that they're gonna need to do it. But a lot of times you rip because the baby comes out so fast. You could be pushing and the baby's right there. Next thing you know, the next push you have, he just goes and just comes right out. And then of course it's gonna rip. Okay, I know that most people talk about this and there's not a whole lot to talk about in this area, but there is a possibility that you could poop when you push. It's just gonna happen, guys. If you're pushing that hard and trying to push something out of your body, if you have any kind of stool left up in your intestines, it's gonna come out. But you are never gonna know that it's coming out. You're not gonna feel it coming out. You're not gonna know that it came out. And when it does come out, you're not gonna be able to tell because nobody's faces are gonna change. Those nurses literally like wipe it away so fast and then, you know, clean up that area as the doctor is standing there helping you push and getting the baby out. It happens so quickly that nobody even knows what happened. Literally. Don't be embarrassed about pooping during labor. My husband has never been down there. If your husband wants to watch, that's great. My husband has never done that, and I never really wanted him to anyways. So he was always up next to me, so he would have never seen any of that kind of stuff at all. But even if you're afraid, like, oh, the doctor sees it, the nurses, they see that stuff all day long, and to them, it's nothing. It's just another part of labor and delivery. Now, if you have family members that see it and you're worried about it, I'm sure that they could care less as well, but the nurses are so fast at cleaning that stuff up, they're probably never gonna see it. Just do not worry about that kind of stuff. I feel like of all things to be worried about, that is the least one. That shouldn't even be on your list. Okay, next thing is the clothing. I kind of talked about this earlier in the video. I don't ever wear the gowns that they give you. You can actually wear whatever you want. You don't actually have to, they're gonna hand them to you and say, hey, take your clothes off, put this on. But if you bring something of your own, just put it to the side and put your own stuff on. Or maybe you got to the hospital and whatever you wanna wear, that's fine. Just know that you are in charge of your labor and delivery. There is a certain things that the hospital is gonna want you to do or not to do, but majority of it is you're in charge. You can have and do pretty much whatever you want, and you can ask questions all the time. Definitely don't be afraid to ask questions, especially to your nurses. They're there to help you. They're there to make you comfortable. They're there to be your friend and do whatever you want. So definitely don't be afraid to ask them for anything or ask questions about what's going on if you're confused or afraid or any of that kind of stuff. I have always worn like whatever button down PJs, or this last time with my son I had a robe on. Button down or robe, something that opens in the front that you can open up and put baby on your chest or breastfeed easily, like easy access. If you have a button down dress PJ, or you have a button down top that you want to wear, have that on already before they put those IVs on you, because obviously once you get your IVs hooked up, they're probably not going to take those out for another like 24 hours after you've had baby. You're not going to be able to like change your clothes very easily after you've had your baby and they put them on you. You can't really get up and go, okay, now I want to put my robe on, and you have all this stuff hooked up to you. You want to do that before they start putting those IVs on you. So if you know that you want to wear your delivery robe, or you know you want to wear a certain shirt or whatever, make sure that you either come to the hospital in that, or you have it ready to put on in triage when they take you into this room to check you to see if you're dilated and where you're at and all of that. Before they admit you and put you in a hospital room, they will check for all of those things, and that's when they'll tell you like, okay, undress and put your robe on or whatever. What I did with my last baby is I wore it almost looks like a sports bra, but it's really, I used it as a nursing bra because it was so stretchy I could just pull it down. So I wore that, and I wore my robe over it. Of course, when I got there I had my leggings on, so all I had to do when I got there was take my leggings off and put my robe on, and then they hooked me up and everything was great. So I definitely recommend figuring out exactly what you want to wear, but always make sure that it opens in the front and it's easy to, you know, breastfeed with, and for them to put the baby on you for skin to skin, because the minute baby comes out, they're going to lay them on your chest, and so you want it to be open and ready for their skin to touch your skin, to have that bonding moment. And then after they're done cleaning you up and doing all that, they are going to probably leave the room and let you have that first hour for breastfeeding and bonding time. That's when especially you want to be able to have your chest there ready for baby if they are ready to eat, or even if you're just there to snuggle them. You want to have that skin to skin. It is like the best part of when you have your baby. Literally, that first hour is just, you're exhausted, but you're in awe of your baby. You're like staring them down. You can't stop looking at them. You're either crying or you're smiling, you're talking to them, and then you're looking for those cues of them wanting to breastfeed or wanting to eat, and it's just the best part. So always make sure that you're ready for that with something that you can open easily, or that's already open and able to close easily afterwards. You know, when people start coming in and you obviously don't want to show everything, you can just kind of button it up or wrap yourself up with the robe, no problem. All right, y'all, that is the end of my what to expect in a labor and delivery video. I talk about a lot of things, and when I do these kind of videos, it kind of like, I love doing them, but at the same time, I know it's like a lot of information and it can seem overwhelming even after you watch videos like this over and over again. So like I said earlier, if I missed anything, if you still have questions about stuff that I talked about, please feel free to talk about them in the comments and let me know, and I will try to get to every single one of y'all's questions as I possibly can, and be able to answer them honestly with what I feel like is the right answer. And then if I don't know the answer, I will always try to tell you where to go. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a big thumbs up if this is the kind of content that you love. This really helps my channel, and it helps me know the stuff that y'all really love to see and want to see more of. So if you give this video a big thumbs up, that's really going to help me out. Plus, make sure you subscribe if you're new. I would love to have you here, like I said, in this little Soul Tribe Mama family, trying to make our own little mama community. No judgment, just love and support, but I would love to have you here. So I will see y'all on my next video. I've got a few more of these like pregnancy, postpartum videos getting ready to be filmed. And of course, right now we're going through Christmas, so I'll probably have some Christmas content as well, because I love me some Christmas. But thank y'all so much for watching, and I will see y'all on my next one. Bye.